In this video, I'll show you how to create this beautiful, one-stroke gradient, using a simple brush loading technique. This is day 2 of my 30-day one-stroke painting series. For practice, I'm using 150 GSM paper. Flat brush number 6. Flat brush number 8. I'm using simple acrylic colors. Sap green. Brilliant yellow green. I also have a tissue paper and a spray bottle, slab of glass as palette, also a cup of water. First, dip the flat brush into the water. Remove the excess water by wiping it on the edge of the jar, then gently dab the brush on the tissue paper. Now let's load the brush. Take one corner of the flat brush and dip it into the first color. Then dip the other corner into the second color. This technique is called double loading. Now, move the brush gently back and forth on the palette to slightly blend the colors. This helps create a smooth gradient stroke. First, practice strokes. Now let's test the brush on the paper. Press the brush gently and move it across the paper. You can see some white patches here. That's because there wasn't enough paint on the brush. Load more paint and try again. You can overlap the strokes if you want. This is the basic idea of one-stroke painting. Practice making several strokes like this. Try to keep the pressure even, so the gradient remains visible. You can see the two colors blending beautifully in one single stroke. I'm making multiple strokes to show how the gradient appears in different movements. When painting multiple strokes, paint can creep up the brush, leaving the edge dry and causing patchy strokes. Just take a paper towel and wipe off the excess paint that's moved up. And then load again. Now, I will show what happens when the brush has too much water. When the brush is too wet, the paint becomes diluted. The stroke becomes thin and less vibrant. The colors start mixing too much, and the gradient becomes unclear. So controlling the amount of water in the brush is very important. If you want the strokes to be darker and have a more gradient look, wipe off the brush to remove excess water and paint. Then, reload the brush freshly. Notice how the color on one side stays darker, while the other side remains lighter. This contrast is what makes one-stroke painting look beautiful. If you are finding it tough to load the brush horizontally, you can try loading it vertically as well. Practicing these simple strokes will help you later, when painting flowers and leaves. Now let's see what happens when the brush is too dry. When there is very little moisture, the paint does not spread smoothly. The stroke appears rough and broken. So, spray some water on the paint to avoid dryness. The brush should be slightly damp, not dripping wet. While loading, don't drag the brush long on the palette, keep the strokes short. If we add even more water, the stroke becomes very light and uneven. Instead of a clean gradient, the colors blend together and look muddy. Instead of tissue paper, you can also use cotton cloth to wipe your brush. I personally prefer cotton cloth because it absorbs water well and can be reused. Also remember that strokes may look slightly different depending on the surface you are painting on, such as canvas, watercolor paper, or glass. If you accidentally load opposite colors like this, if space allows, use another spot on the palette. Otherwise, wipe with a wet tissue paper and reload. The more you practice these strokes, the easier it will become to control your brush. Now I'm switching to flat brush number 6. A smaller brush gives smaller and more controlled strokes. This is useful when painting smaller flowers or fine details. You don't need to change your water very often. You can usually use the same water for one painting session. But if the water becomes too muddy or mixed with dark colors like black, it's better to change it. If you are a beginner, remember that practice is the key. One-stroke painting becomes easier with consistency and patience. Keep practicing and developing your own style. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this tutorial helps you understand the brush loading technique better. I will see you in day 3 of this series.